The things that you're going to need to make your pottery wheel from recycled materials are some sort of base. So a soda can, either empty or full, unopened. If it's unopened, it's actually a little bit easier, but not required. Or you can use a toilet paper tube, or this is another piece that I found in our recycling, old chocolate bottle. And then you're going to need a thing like a can that fits over the top, but doesn't go all the way to the bottom. You can see that you can still see part of my can underneath. So the tighter the fit, the better. You can see that with my toilet paper tube, there's a gap in there. And the reason, there's still a gap in this one. The reason that you want it to be tight is because when you're spinning it, the tighter it is, the better, because it won't wobble as much. So you can see that difference compared to this one that wobbles a little bit, or this one where it wobbles back and forth a little bit more. So I'm going to use this one as my example, but you can really use any kind of material, just so long as you have another piece that fits over the top of it and it can spin. The next thing that you're going to need is either a ruler or a blank piece of paper. It's just a blank white piece of paper. And you'll need something to mark with. I'm using a Sharpie metallic pen so that you'll be able to see my marks, but you can use any kind of pen. You'll also need a hot glue gun if you have one, but if you don't have one, you can use something like duct tape or a very strong tape. This is so that we can tape the base onto our wheel. The last thing that you're going to need is something like a tray or a plastic plate. This is just a to-go container that I cut the lid off of. This is nice because it has a lip inside of it. So when I'm working with my clay, if I get water or anything like that, this is going to catch some of the water and it's not going to make too much of a mess. But a plate or even a piece of cardboard that you cut to size will work just great. The very first thing I'm going to do is to find the middle of the bottom of my tray or my plate or my piece of cardboard. And I'm going to do that by, let me get a little bit better angle for you, finding the middle by going diagonally. So I'm not measuring side to side, I'm measuring corner to corner. And this is 9 inches, so not half of 9 is 4.5. And then I'll do it the other direction, 4.5. And I'll find the middle-ish point between those two. I can measure it again if I want to make sure it's exact. 4.5 and 4.5, and my dot is at 4.5 both directions. So the reason I want to find the middle point is because I want to be able to put my can right in the middle so that it's the most stable. Because if I put my can over here, when this spins, it's going to not spin very well. If you don't have a ruler, here is a fancy trick. You can measure the size of your box. Here's the edge of my to-go container. Sorry, you can't see it super well because my background is black too. But here's the edge of my to-go container. Measure it on the other side so that you get a straight line. And then find the lid for my marker. Make 2 marks, and you can cut your paper. Now this is kind of like my ruler. It's the same size as my box. So then I can fold this in half, put a mark right here, and I know that this is the halfway point of my box. It's measured halfway. So now I can do the same thing where I line it up roughly in the middle. I wouldn't go corner to corner this time because it's not going to be the right size. And I would mark then the other direction and mark, and I'll find the middle point. So that's a simple trick if you don't have a ruler. And at this point is when you're going to put the top part, so the part that is biggest, that goes over the bottom part. I'm going to put the top part upside down so that, let's see if I can make this a better angle for you. The open part of my can, or whatever it is facing up right now. Because when I turn it over, I want to make sure that it can still sit over my other can. I'm going to find, so that basically the middle of this is on my middle dot. If you have hot glue, this is where your hot glue is going to come in handy. Put a lot of hot glue. Please ask an adult before you use the hot glue, because it is hot. If you don't have hot glue, that's okay. And then you're going to position it as close to the center as you can. Let it dry. And then maybe run an extra bead around the base so you make sure that it stays. This isn't going to be exactly in the middle, but it's close enough. Now, if you don't have hot glue, you can use some duct tape or another strong piece of tape. And tape your can or your top piece on instead. I'm actually going to do both because I want to make sure that it's on there really strong. So I'm actually going to use both hot glue and tape. So now that my can is glued on there really well, see how it's not going to come off, I can put it on top of my soda can, and now I have a spinning wheel. So when you watch that video, you notice that the wheel was spinning as they were using the clay. We don't have electricity on our wheel, obviously, so you'll have to spin it yourself. It's not going to be quite the same, but it'll still be like having a wheel. If you've used a can that hasn't been, or that has been opened already, or if you're using something like a toilet paper tube that's really lightweight, you will need to find a way to make sure that this sticks to whatever the surface is. So you could use some duct tape to make sure that it sticks on here, because otherwise it'll wobble. That's why having a heavy can or something that hasn't been opened is much easier, because now I don't have to duct tape that can to my table in order for it to rotate.